What are your thoughts on Anavar for women?
Bro, I have no idea.
Okay.
I wish I did too. And I know the name like steroid, D-ball, Anavar, Tren, Test, but Anavar I don't really know.
Listen, so for anyone who doesn't know, Anavar is a steroid. It's relatively mild compared to testosterone. It's relatively mild compared to D-ball or to Winstrol. And there are different effects of all of these different steroids. Each of them has a different effect. Anavar is relatively mild. Here's what I think. I think that if you are considering taking anything, you really have to ask yourself, is it worth the potential costs? And what is the best case scenario of this? Like, what's the best case scenario of you taking these drugs? And how will that change your life? And is that best case scenario worth the potential downsides? That's really the conversation you need to ask yourself, or you need to have with yourself. Even though Anavar is relatively mild, it doesn't come without its own risk. And I think one of the major risks of any of these drugs, whether it's, by the way, and they're not in the same class, but like whether it's a GLP-1, whether it's steroids, whether it's any drug, anything you're taking, what's the risk and what's the benefit? And in the best case scenario, are those risks worth it to you? I don't think for the vast majority of people, it's worth it. Especially, and this might be controversial, but especially for women. I think it's especially even more potentially dangerous. And there's an argument to be made that it's even more dangerous for men, especially with blood pressure issues and all of that, and like the cancer issues as a result of it. But my answer would be, I don't think it's worth it for the vast majority of people. Not to mention, where are you getting it from? Like, you're not getting Anavar from your doctor or your pharmacist. Mm-hmm. So it's like you're just trusting whoever's giving it to you, that they're giving you something that is, at best, a pure, clean form of it. But even then, it still has its own potential negative side effects. And even if it is purely clean and all that, like, it could have real negative side effects. At worst, have negative side effects and not be a pure, clean form of it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you really have to weigh out these pros and cons. And I don't think for the vast majority of people, it's even worth considering. I just don't.
Yeah, it's a great point on the sourcing of the drugs.
That's one of the scary things right now about, I mean, Theo Von made like a joke about it where he was like, can't even do cocaine in America anymore. And if you don't know Theo Von, he's one of the most hilarious comedians in the world right now. I think he's just hilarious because of his personality. But it's like the cocaine from the 60s and 70s is very different than the cocaine from today. And I mean, we've had hundreds of thousands of Americans killed from laced drugs that aren't actually the drugs that they say they are. I know people who've gotten what they thought were steroids when it wasn't actually steroids because they bought it from someone. And there was, I'm not going to name any names, or I'm not even going to give any hints. I know people who were sold what they were told was steroids, when in reality, in this case, they literally just put oil in a vial. They put olive oil in a vial and sold them. And you don't know what else they could have put in there. But number one, it wasn't even effective. They didn't do anything. They were just injecting olive oil into themselves. And like, that's a best case scenario because at the very least, like, it's probably not going to harm you. But I mean, you never know. You could probably hurt yourself injecting olive oil into your muscle.
Dude, or grapeseed oil. Imagine if that was a seed oil.
Dear
like, it'd be awful.
Yeah, it's I just don't think it's worth the risk for the vast majority of people.